Welcome to the Mountain Valley News Iron Bowl Special. I'm Monk Blevins, and this is Logan Wright, and we're back with you this week to talk a little bit college football. This is a big week, man. I'm excited, and I'm excited to have two guys with us. Our guest this week, we've got Mr. Ben McCurdy, and he played linebacker for the Auburn Tigers from 1982 to 1986. And we've got Nick Ledbetter, who was a student assistant and a graduate assistant at the University of Alabama from 2003 to 2005. First of all, I want to welcome you guys, and I know this is a big week for both of you. This is Iron Bowl week, and so what's your thoughts, as we go into Iron Bowl this week, Ben?
This week is, I still get butterflies because this week the intensity just ramps up or used to. And once you've gone through that 2 or 3 times, it don't go away. Yeah. So on Iron Bowl week, there's a lot at stake, especially if you live in the state of Alabama.
Oh, absolutely. And Nick, what's some of your thoughts on it being Iron Bowl week, and how do you feel, and you get excited about this? And
well, when I was at Alabama, it was a lot of fun. It was intense because normally a coach's job was dependent on it too. But now being a fan and being around kids and being a teacher and seeing kids dress up for school all week, it's kind of like it's just another holiday in the state of Alabama. We got Thanksgiving week and Iron Bowl week, and I don't know which one's bigger, Thanksgiving or the Iron Bowl week. And it's just a lot of fun to sit around with family and watch a game. And cheer for your team.
Yeah, I love to just sit around and talk football. And again, we're glad you guys are here with us today. And we're just going to sit back and have fun and let you guys tell us some stories about when you were there. And I think Logan has got some questions for you right now. So
it's really great to have you guys here. Both of y'all were both at opposing schools, and I know y'all had to see a lot and experience a lot that I guess the normal fan doesn't get to on a day-to-day basis. Do y'all have any insider stories y'all'd like to share with us and the viewers?
Well, on Iron Bowl week, we had extra meetings that week too, so that Coach Dye could go over again the importance of the week, and we didn't have that with other teams, and also just the players, everybody on the team knew what was at stake, and so the intensity and just the amount of effort that went into the week's preparations and everything just ramped up.
You have any insider stories, Coach, you want to share with us?
I have some stories, yeah. We were on probation when I was there, and a lot of some things that I probably don't need to talk about, but they were all the 3 coaches I worked under was Dennis Franchione, Mike Price, and Mike Shula, and all were 3 different guys that had 3 different attitudes with 3 different team chemistries, and it was just like it was a lot of fun. It was got to meet a lot of different people. A lot of network people, and I have some stories on all of them. Mike Shula, he got on to me one day because a parent, when parents and kids come to visit at the school or the university, while the coaches with the players, me and this other guy, our job was to talk with the parents and be with the parents. And I got to know a lot of the daddies real well. And one of the dads, Coach Shula's, wanted to talk to him, but he didn't have time to talk to him because he was too busy talking to me at the time. So later that day, Coach Shula got me a pretty good tongue lashing. But Mike Price was another good one. When him and his staff showed up in January, none of the kids that were there on official visit, they didn't know any of them. And I think some of the ones that were there would have been like a Tyrone Pro Throws class. They didn't know who any of the kids were. And all the kids, typically the kids would go out and we'd take the parents for coffee and desserts and stuff, and then we'd go retire to the hotel rooms and make sure if anything happened or parents or kids, we'd take care of it, make sure we had everything taken care of. And that particular first day on Tuscaloosa, the coach was ready to go see the town, and me and one of the other GAs, we got in the van and we drove them. We didn't get out. We didn't get out of the van. We knew it wasn't right, and we drove the van around and. We was doing what our boss told us to do, but we didn't get out of the van.
One of the things when I think about Alabama and Auburn week, I think about Coach Paul Bear Bryant and Coach Shug Jordan, and of course I'm a little older than you guys, I guess, but that was kind of my era, and man, I can remember some of those games, the 1972 game when Alabama was ranked number 1. I think they were up 16-3, and Auburn blocked 2 punts and came back and won that football game. That one always sticks in my mind. Every year I think about that ball game and think, how in the world did they do that? But so what's some of your memories maybe as just growing growing up and of Auburn and Alabama, something that sticks in your mind. So
Well, my parents and grandparents went to Auburn, so some of the earliest games I can remember going to, I was about 6, 8 years old, which would have been about 1972, right around in there. So my first games, I got to see Sullivan, Beasley. I mean, those were some of the glory days,
Oh, absolutely.
at Auburn, and so I was just, I was sold out from the first game I ever went to right up to when I signed with Auburn. That was probably the highlight of my life, but just being recruited and to get to have the opportunity to go, because it was a new world. I mean, it's a long way from Ider to Auburn in a lot of ways.
yeah,
So both athletically and I remember my first snap. I remember my first scrimmage play at Auburn. The backfield was Ron O'Neal. They called him Rocket. He was a fullback, big fullback. Bo Jackson was one of the tailbacks, and Little Train James was the other tailback. I've never seen people move that fast. And just getting caught up to the speed of the game and the contact. You just imagine the hardest lick that you ever got in high school. That's
Yeah.
every play.
yeah.
That's every play. And so you just have to work yourself into that, and you either do that or you go home.
Yeah. Well, what about you, Nick? I mean, growing up, what are some of your memories of the Alabama-Auburn game?
Growing up as a kid and a fan, it was huge. You had the pit in your stomach if Alabama got beat, then the next day it was awful, and the next day was still awful, and the next day was still awful. And it didn't really get better. There was always that pit in your stomach of next year. So and a lot of people's that way.
Yeah, the other things I can remember, at Bear Bryant when he was coaching Alabama, I think they got on a 9-game winning streak, and when Tommy Tuberville came to Auburn, they won 6 in a row, I think, and and so it's kind of been a little bit streaky, but over the last few years, it seems like it's kind of back and forth every year, and
It really is.
it's been a great series, and some of the things I was looking at some of the stats and different things, and Alabama leads the series 43-35, and they've had one tie, and which I thought was a little bit strange that they didn't have more than that, I guess. But Alabama, the most points ever scored was last year between if you combine, and that was they scored 99 points, and so there wasn't a whole lot of defense, was there?
No.
So Logan.
Well, my family, we have a cabin we rent every Iron Bowl, and we do our Thanksgiving, and then we all get our plates and we go eat. And I have a cousin that went to Auburn and graduated from Auburn, so our family's pretty much split in between Auburn and Alabama. Well, the cabin we rent is a 2-story cabin, and everybody knows that when it comes game time, the Auburn fans have to go upstairs and the Alabama fans stay downstairs. And when Alabama scores, we'll beat on the ceiling, and when Auburn scores, they'll kick on the floor. One thing that really sticks out to me is Heisman Trophy winners. You have Alabama, you have Mark Ingram, and then from Auburn you have Bo Jackson and Cam Newton. I know you actually got the opportunity to play with Bo Jackson. What was that like?
Yeah, we were the same class. Actually, Bo Jackson wasn't the highest recruited running back in the nation that year. We actually signed the highest recruit in the nation, and that was Allen Evans. And we also signed about 3 offensive linemen off that team. And he played at Enterprise, but Bo rose to the top real early. It was plain to see what he was all about. I mean, he was just a phenomenon. And but I got to play against 3 Heisman Trophy winners: Mike Rozier at Nebraska, and at Doug Flutie at Boston College, and Herschel Walker at Georgia. And Herschel Walker's probably the best college running back I've ever played against. I mean, because you knew if you said number 34 is going to get the ball, you were right 95% of the time. And so, all eyes are keyed on him, and it's just a matter of stopping him. And that's what made him so great. It was still hard to do because he was just a phenomenal athlete.
Well, Nick, what about you? What are some of the standout players while you were at Alabama? Who were some of those that
Well, you had
that
Brody.
really-
Everybody remembers Brody. You had, of course, Prothrow. He became a big name. Everybody's got his print from the catch. There's some linemen, Wesley Britt, some guys like that. I'm trying to think. One of the defensive ends that nobody really talked about much that I thought was a really good player was Nada McKay Loescher. He was from Canada. He was one. Franchione had a running back that came with him from TCU named Shad Williams. It was really
Yes.
good. Shad was good. Ray Hudson. Ray Hudson still running the fastest 40 time I've ever seen run in my life.
Yeah.
He was an amazing speed guy. But there were some really good ball players.
Yeah. Well, one thing being, and sitting here talking, I think about Pat Dye, and I'm sure you've got some stories on Pat Dye, and so talk to us a little bit about Pat Dye and playing for him, and
To say that Coach Dye was a disciplinarian would be an understatement. I mean, it was all his way, and that's why he ran the program. And he was a man's man, and he didn't put up with no disrespect, no anything. And he kept a pocket full of tickets, Greyhound tickets. And you mess up, you go home. I mean, that's just there was none of this, second, third, fourth, fifth chance. He had a line that you knew that you didn't cross. And I remember his first year there, Auburn had 2 All-Americans there, and he ran both of them off before the season even started there in '81. But Coach Dye was just hard-nosed. He liked to beat people, and I don't mean just on the scoreboard, because the number one thing that we ranked every Monday, we'd have these meetings, and the first thing, if you didn't win the contact, that was the first thing he graded us on. He graded us on contact, defense, offense, kicking teams, and he went down through there, and you better hope you won the contact, because the next week in practice was a bear if you didn't. And he was just consistent. And the only thing I wish we'd have just threw the ball a little, just maybe once or twice, just loosen them up, get that 11 out of the box. And the worst Alabama game I can remember, it's one of 2 games I remember every day. I think about them, and this is the second game that I think about every day of my life. Is that '84 Iron Bowl, where, and honestly, it was like being in some sort of slow motion movie. We went out there, and I looked up, and it was halftime. The next thing I know, I look up, and it's the fourth quarter, and we're ahead 21 to 19 or something like that. And there's just a few seconds to go in the game, and we're on the field, and Alabama has managed to get the ball to about the R45 or something. And I thought, well, we got this one, and then Lane Tiffin, kicks a 52-yarder at the end of the game. And I mean, that was one of those years where Alabama didn't have nothing to beat us with, and they beat us. Yeah. So that game, there's a lot of, you can't just say, yeah, Alabama's got a better team this year, and they do. But better chemistry, better everything. But that don't always win.
That's
especially
exactly right.
In the Iron Bowl. That is one game that can go either way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, Nick, what about? I know you mentioned you worked under Coach Shula and Coach Franchione, and what about those guys? I mean, what was their? I guess did they were they very intense on game day or what?
Price, we don't know.
Yeah. With Price, we don't know. That's true. Yeah, but what about Franchione and
Franchione was really laid back, all business type guy. He's walking around making sure everybody's doing what they were supposed to be doing. And then Shula was a little more intense. I remember him and Paul Randolph when they would go ones on ones. Paul Randolph was a defensive line coach, and Coach Shula, he was the head coach, and he was the offensive coach too. When they went ones on ones, they would do their play and they'd cut the D line. And Coach Randolph would start yelling at Coach, quit cutting my D line. This is ones. Start yelling at him. He'd cut him a next play. And they'd cut him a next play. And he was really intense at practice. Him and I thought him and Paul Randolph was going to throw fists at him. Part of me feels like they did it on purpose, but to get the team amped up. But as the year went by, I don't think they did. I don't think they were doing it on purpose. He was not happy that his D-line was getting cut, and Shula was not happy that he was whining about it.
Yeah.
But when it come to game day, it was a different. He's doing pretty good right now. He's got Cam Newton and the Panthers at 10-0.
Absolutely. So yeah, he is doing real well. Well, we've talked a little bit about the past, and now we want to talk a little bit about what's going on now, and Auburn comes in, and of course they were preseason, I think, ranked number 6, and things haven't fell quite like they wanted them to fall. And talk to us a little bit, Ben, about what the season and what you see, and maybe what they could have done different, maybe if you've seen something like that, or just your thoughts on this season.
Well, I think I'm like a lot of Auburn fans in the fact that I'm shocked a little bit about our play at quarterback, and no disrespect to those young men, but Jeremy Johnson, who we had all seen start games plural, not just one, because of injuries and discipline problems and stuff, but he's played games and done an excellent job, and I never expected him. I don't know if it was pressure or what, but he just didn't quite evolve into what everybody thought he was going to do, and it seemed obvious to everybody. This is okay. You've done this. You'll do this, and not to put it all on him, because it's been also team chemistry.
Yeah.
Getting the effort. I can see, like on defense, I can see where coaches got them better alignment, better assignment. I like his schemes. I like his plays. I like everything about it. But getting the effort, absolute effort, every play. That's part of the chemistry, and it doesn't just come from coaches. It comes from you players. You have to have some leaders on the field, team members, right, that will push everybody and push the right buttons at the right time, because the talent's there. I mean, and your successes and your failures depend on intensity and effort, and that's what it is at that level, because everybody's got talent.
Yeah. Well, what about they brought in Will Muschamp this year as the defensive coordinator, and what have you saw out of the defense that what's your thoughts on the defense and Will Muschamp?
Other than the LSU game, which
Fournette.
Yeah, I couldn't watch the second half. I mean, I was about to have to go to the hospital for an anxiety attack or something. But just total lack of effort. It seemed to me like they just quit, and that's the best way I could describe it. But since then, in their defense, though, since then, to their credit, they've made a comeback, and they've pulled themselves up from the ashes, and they've put on a much better show, much better effort from that point on. And the offense, I think, is finally starting to gel a little bit, start to run a little, but still, for Malzahn's offense, your trigger man, the defense has to be absolutely scared to death about his arm and his legs for his offense to work. And, we don't really have that.
Yeah.
I understand our recruiting's going real well to get that, though, but we'll have to wait and see. So, but this year hadn't been a total loss. I mean, they've been successful in the fact that they've been able to come back and persevere.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about a little bit earlier in the season, tell me what it was like from an Auburn point of view watching that Auburn JSU game, because I was at that game, and that environment was probably the craziest environment I've ever been in.
Well, my youngest son actually goes to JSU, so I have a JSU cap, and sure, he plays golf there. So and he's also an Auburn fan. Obviously, he grew up an Auburn fan, and he kind of told me that day, just joking. He said, "Well, I can't lose today, Dad." He said, "I go to JSU, and I'm an Auburn fan, so hey, either way's good for me." And I said, "Yeah." But as the game progressed, and JSU. I followed that program just a little bit last year when he first went there, and I followed it this year. They have 20 to 21 players that are from Alabama, the team, Auburn, Ole Miss. They have no depth, but they've got 21 that can play with anybody.
Yeah.
And I think they've kind of proven that. They're undefeated since the Auburn game. But that game, anytime a major powerhouse, has to go to that level and that long with a team in overtime, it's a little disconcerting, to say the least.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, and that was one of my questions, and I know with you playing at Auburn, and of course I don't remember the schedule back when you were playing, but when you had a game like this, I mean, was it hard to get ready for that ball game? Was it hard to get fired up or ready for it?
I'm glad you brought that up because I want to get a hold of the people that scheduled our games when I played, and I want to choke them to death because our off games, where we'd start off with either Texas or Nebraska, that was our first game. Now those were pushovers, and then our off games were Southern Miss. Now this is back when Southern Miss, they had. Brett Favre and a lot of, I mean, they were really good. Our another off game was Florida State. We played them every year I was there. Bobby. So that, that was just an easy, that was just a real easy game. Schedule. Yeah, cupcake schedule. And I guess probably the lightest, we played Georgia my first 2 years. Georgia Tech, and they had just gotten out of the SEC.
Yeah.
And that was probably the easiest game and some of the craziest games. They almost beat us at Grant Field, and then they came to Auburn and we had them 45-0 at the half. And the game ended 45-21, and I thought they were coming back on us. I mean, the game it was like two different games.
Yeah.
But football's an odd game. Sometimes it can, somebody falls down, somebody slips, somebody. It doesn't
catches
take
a
much.
field goal and runs it back.
Catches a field goal, runs it back. I mean, it's an odd game sometimes.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It really is. Well, Nick, what about you? Alabama comes in. They're sitting at 10-1 this year, and or right now. And so, what's your thoughts on this Alabama team? And of course, they lost to Ole Miss, I think, third game of the season. And so, what's your thoughts on this Alabama team and where they're at right now?
To me, I think the biggest difference in Alabama now and Alabama early was their offensive line play.
Yeah.
I think their offensive line's playing really, really good right now. And early in the season, they didn't have their cognuity together of their schemes, and it seemed like they were a little bit confused at times. But now that's really the biggest difference of how they've come along from the beginning of the season to now is the play on their offensive line, because their quarterbacks finally got settled in, which had to happen at some point in time. That was a question mark. So their quarterback settled in. Alabama has a game manager type quarterback. I think they finally got him settled in at that. They have skilled people all over the field that he can get the ball to. Big running backs like they've been having the past few years. And then defensively, from front to back, side to side, they're as good as I guess Alabama's ever had as far as all the way. Mm-hmm. From front to back, side to side, all across the field, they may be as good as they've ever been. Now, they've had some really good defensive linemen, some really good linebackers and corners and DBs the last few years, but I think as a whole package, they're really good. And going back on Auburn, what Mr. McCurdy was talking about earlier on the game speed, to me, when I watch Auburn play, when I see their playmakers making plays, the guys making the tackles, the guys catching the ball and running the ball, it seems like it's a true freshman, or a sophomore or something like that. And these guys were playing high school ball either last year or the year before. And they're playing against guys 23, 24 years old. Derunyon Wilson and Dak Prescott, people like that, say Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And they're used to the game speed. And to me, that's where I see Auburn at is Auburn's not bad. Auburn's really, really young, and I think it shows up.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I noticed, watching Auburn games, and, they're playing a lot of youth, and and of course nobody wants to make an excuse. Hey, we're young,
Yeah.
but Auburn really is, and one of the things that I was real impressed with is the Sean White coming in at quarterback, and I thought he looked really good. Of course, he was injured and hadn't been able to get back, and I don't know what his status is for this week as far as his health. Maybe have you any kind of updates? And
Malzahn says it's day by day. So they're just giving that out, and they won't release any news until right before kickoff probably. But you're just talking about players. We always like to focus on big names because they're big players, and the one thought that never comes to anybody's mind, somebody like a Carl Lawson, it was devastating to lose him early on.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't because he makes plays, and he does. It's because you have to assign two people to block him every play.
Yeah.
You can't focus everything you want on the point of attack. Mm-hmm. You have to always dedicate two people, and sometimes he can beat a double team, so possibly even a third, a fullback or something, and that frees everybody else up.
Yeah.
They're no longer getting double teamed at the point of attack. You know, you don't think about those sort of things, but that's what goes on, especially when you got a big time player and somebody, you know, that can get around like he can. So Auburn's had some of those issues, but you know, still that doesn't explain effort and that doesn't
Right.
explain tackling.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
the game's still blocking and tackling.
Oh,
The team that does it the best wins.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I guess one of the things too, the freshman, the Coward, I think number 9. I've been impressed with him. You know, just watching him, especially on Saturday. And I tell you, this kid, you know, to be a freshman coming in and stepping in like he's had to step in, and he's growing up quick. And but you know, he has got some talent.
Oh, yeah.
He's got some talent, and so I tell you, this Auburn team, you know, we sat here and you look at the record, and you know, I've read the paper and see all these things on TV, and they're saying, oh, you know, Alabama is going to blow them out, and you know, Auburn needs to just not even show up for the game. But I'm gonna tell you what, you know, they hadn't
I've
watched.
played in a couple of those. That's not true. I can tell you.
Yeah. You know, that's the thing. You know, I look at this game, and you know, Auburn has the talent. Auburn's got the talent, and like you said, I think if they get the effort, this is going to be a great football game. And you know, I guess one of the things I wanted to ask you, what do you see in Alabama? You know, I don't know how much you've watched Alabama play this year, but give us your opinion on Alabama, what they do well, and maybe some things that Auburn can do to you know.
When they show up, when Alabama shows up, because they cannot show up. You know, they can go through the motions sometimes. When they show up, everybody on that team seemingly playing inspired, you know, football, and can stay focused for 4 quarters. You know, I've seen great Alabama teams. That 2010 team is as good as I've ever seen, and they lost 3 games. There was no excuse in the world for
Absolutely.
that. I mean, that was the biggest shame I've ever seen, including the Auburn game.
Yeah.
I mean, we spot them 27, you know, and come back, and you know, Saban's looking around and they're sitting on the bench, got their pads off, and you know, because it's 27-0,
Right.
and he's having to ramp them up and get them, you know, back in the game. And with Alabama, it's about playing keeping that much talent focused to play 4 quarters, you know, with all intensity that you can get out of them. And if they show up and do that, you are up against a wall. They're going to have to help you. They're going to have to help Auburn. Somebody asked me today, said, "What's Auburn's chances?" And I said, "Well, we got as good a chance as South Carolina does of beating Clemson." About like that, you know, and I mean, simply because we're just not gelling. We're not a well-oiled machine like Alabama has proven several times now that they can play. And you know, the running backs, the offensive line, when you can control a game at the line of scrimmage, you know, the football in the SEC is still the same. Yeah, whoever controls the line of scrimmage wins.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You know, one of the things, and I know the spread offense has become a big thing over the past few years, but, you know, I guess I'm still old school. I think if you've got a good defense, if you can play defense, you can keep yourself in a football game and have a chance to win. And,
You can, and defense still wins championships. You know, you can see all of the Oregons and the Pac-12 schools are big on offense and little on defense. So are the Big 12 schools. You know, they're big on offense and very little defense, but they don't win a lot of national championships. And it all comes down to, you do have to have a all-around team, offense and defense, really. But that defense has to be, if you're ahead, you know, Coach Dye wanted to beat everybody 3-0. I mean, that, you know, 3-0, and he was happy. And that's, you know, because they said, well, Coach, why don't you pass? You got this. You got Chris Woods. You got Monk. You got all these guys. And he said, well, there's 3 things that happen when you throw the ball, and 2 of them aren't good. You know, so that was our passing philosophy. You know, so we're going to line. He said, when we can't line up and run Bo Jackson 3 times and get 10 yards and, you know, first down, he said, we need to go to the house.
Yeah. Well, Dick, what's your thoughts? I know you're a defensive coordinator at Sylvania and you know a lot about defense. What does Auburn need to do this week to have a chance to beat Alabama? What's your thoughts on that?
Make Alabama throw the ball. Make Jake Coker beat you. I think that's what you got to do. I mean, you got SEC talent up front versus SEC talent up front. These guys are recruited. If they can win the line of scrimmage on defense and make Alabama throw the ball and make Jake Coker and Ridley and Mulaney and these guys beat them throwing the ball through there, Auburn's going to have a chance, I think. But if they don't, it's going to be a long, long day.
Mm-hmm.
And if talking back what Mr. McCurdy was talking about, these teams in the championships, you go back and look at the last 10, 12 years in the national championship. Every team that's won, number one's had a good defense, like you were talking about. Number two, they can run the ball. Ohio State last year, how many yards they have rushing in the national championship game? How many yards they have rushing against Alabama? How many? You go back year after year after year, the teams that win the national championship play really good defense and they can run the ball. So I think these spread teams that can, get a lot of snaps and beat teams bad, I think that's their Achilles heel when it comes late in the season and they're playing these teams that run the ball and play good on defense. It's been proven over and over and over. If you can run the ball and play defense, you got a chance to win championships.
Yeah.
To add to what he was saying, I think another great aspect of national championship teams is controlling the clock. As you talk about Oregon, I can't remember how many touchdowns Oregon had last year in under a minute.
Yeah.
But then when it came down to crunch time, they couldn't slow the ball down and slow the pace. That's just not their style. I don't think that's how their practices are run. That's not what they're used to. I think that really affects teams. I think that's affecting Auburn a little bit this year too.
And the more you snap the ball, the more chance you have to turn it over.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know, Ben, I know you're in the area you grew up in. That's kind of the spread offense. There wasn't a whole lot of spread offense going on back in those days.
No.
And so I'm sure you're kind of like me. What's your thoughts? I love I hear people all the time. Oh, that's such a boring football game. When it's 7-3 or it's 14-7.
I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. 9-6, 7-3, 3-2. The Auburn Mississippi State game a few years ago was 3-2.
Absolutely, yeah.
But the closest thing I ever came to playing the spread, I forgot about this Heisman Trophy winner that I played against, Bernie Kosar at Miami. We played him in the Kickoff Classic in New Jersey. And that was the closest thing to a spread I'd ever seen. But they didn't, they ran just trips maybe a time or two and twins, most of the time. And that was, they had but it was more of a still more of a pro-eye passing attack. These spread offenses that they run these days, it puts so much pressure on your outside linebackers and your defensive backs.
Yeah.
And the defensive back already has to be the best athlete on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, they are.
Yeah.
Because they have to cover the fastest guys on the field every play. And on speed sweeps or toss sweeps, they got to come up and take on the biggest guys on the field, those pulling guards, and make plays. So these guys are asked to do a lot, and your outside linebackers to a certain degree too. And it puts so much pressure on them to make the right decision. And the offense has got 4 options now. Well, they just had 3 when I played. I'm sitting there thinking, boy, if I had to read that, I think a lot of times when I watch a play it develop, and I'm like, well, all right, well, where's your responsibility at here? Where'd he go?
Yeah. Well, what about you, Nick? What's your thoughts on the spread offenses versus just the hard-nosed type football? Which, I know you're...
Well, in high school, I think you got to do the hand you're dealt, what kind of kids you have.
Yeah.
But college, you could recruit what you want.
Right.
So I think it makes a difference. But I'm a little old school. I think you got to run the football. But the thing that the spread does, like you said, it spreads you out, and you can expose everybody.
Yeah.
You can expose all levels. You can find the weakest link or the weakest side. Of course, you can run the ball too up front. You can expose who we're going to run the ball at or who we're going to run the ball away from. But the spread, if you take how many times you snap the ball versus time of possession, and the turnovers are the same or 0, I know there's been some studies out there that says that the more times you snap the ball, the better chance you have to win. And I'm sure that's probably a study done by some Harvard person that's done these numbers, but you can make numbers turn out and make numbers look whatever you want them to look like. And I think if you hold on to the football, win the time of possession, and finish every drive with a kick and play good defense, you're going to win the ball game.
Yeah.
Love it.
I agree with that. Yeah, we talked a little bit about Auburn's having to switch back and forth between quarterbacks. And to me, the quarterback is really a leadership role more than an athlete. So talk to us a little bit about that, how you think it's just affecting Auburn's offense and just their whole team in general as far as a leadership role.
Offense is so much about timing. I mean, whether it's a running play or a passing play, all of them have fakes and they have movements, you know, sometimes misdirections, you know, to throw the defense off. And it's all about the timing, and it's all about the spiral too. If you're a receiver, you switch out quarterbacks left-handed and right-handed. Of course, we don't have that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different, the ball's spinning a different way.
Yeah.
But it's all different, and the timing and the cadences and everything. I mean, I've seen us have so many just sloppy penalties, you know, this year with offside. I mean, it just seems like it's continuous, you know, and illegal procedure. Just, you know, every third play, you're just, oh my gosh, there's another handkerchief. You know, what have we done this time? But the quarterback continuity with the rest of the team and the chemistry and just getting to know what your receiver's going to do. You know, because they have design plays where the receiver, if the defensive back does this, the receiver's doing that, and this quarterback knows it, you know, and he hits you right here. And so all that timing and playmaking ability comes with time and with practice and with repetitions.
Yeah.
And when you're swapping out quarterbacks every other play, you know, you're going to lose some of that. And there's not but just a little bit of difference between those athletes out there. And you knowing where you're going versus him having to react is a big difference.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if you can, you know, emphasize that.
Yeah.
Coach, what do you have to say on the subject about the interchanging quarterbacks?
I think if you got one and you can stay with him, you're better off if you are switch them in and out.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. If they leave Johnson in and they let him play through his hardships and let him get better, everything can be different. But these coaches, they have so much pressure on them about making the right decision, especially in these games like Alabama, Auburn, where if you're the coach, I mean, it's a big game period. But this is a game. This is a paycheck game. This is the hot seat game.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pressure, and Malzahn's going to do a lot of. I think he's going to have to give Alabama a lot of different formations and motions and shifts to try to match up the one-on-ones with guys and try to confuse Alabama's secondary on guys coming out of the backfield and on some outs and try to get rid of the ball quick with pass protection or fake the run and run a wheel off of it. But I think for Auburn to score points, they're going to have to try to confuse Alabama's secondary on matchups because Alabama plays so much man, and you get these offensive coordinators that have some guys that can throw the ball. Look at South Carolina. I guess it might have been 2010. Talking about that team, it's 2010 was so good. Steve Spurrier, he had a pretty good quarterback and a couple of good receivers. Well, he just abused Alabama because Alabama plays so much man.
Yeah.
And if you can protect, well, in Auburn's case, I think Auburn's going to have to do some shifts and some motions off their shift to try to confuse Alabama's secondary and try to get that one-on-one mismatch. Maybe a linebacker end up guarding a receiver or a back out of the backfield with a linebacker guard, something like that to try to beat them deep. Or off a play. It's got to be off play action too, I think.
Yeah.
Because Alabama's just so good up front.
Well, I've got a couple more questions, and I hope we've got time. One thing's, Ben, I want to ask you, coming in and it seems like most of the pressure will be on Alabama. They've got a chance to play in the championship game, and Auburn, they've made the bowl now. They're bowl eligible. So, what's your thoughts? And maybe you've got a feeling on this. As they come into this game, it seems like Auburn can play a little bit looser maybe than Alabama. And
yeah, I mean, definitely Auburn doesn't have what's riding on the game for Alabama. Alabama's playing for SEC championship, potential national championship, and that weight definitely falls on you. I mean, you're aware of what's at stake, and whereas Auburn, they've made their bowl. If they beat Alabama, they probably don't get a better bowl. They still go to a lesser bowl, but at the same time, that game in a lot of ways isn't about bowls.
right,
I mean, it's about state pride. He was talking about. I believe Auburn's going to run some trick plays. I'm pretty sure. But also, I think in order for Auburn to win this year, Alabama's going to have to help us.
Yeah.
They're going to have to show up thinking that's all we got to do, show up. That would help a lot. and also, they're going to have to, fumble a punt, drop a kick, throw an interception, just something during the course of the game, to kind of help us along a little. But because if they show up just hard-nosed and focused and running downhill at us, it's going to be a long day for us, I'm afraid.
Nick, what's your thoughts in coming in and with Alabama coming in at 10-1, and needing to win this ball game versus Auburn, I mean, they would love to win this ball game, but they can come in and probably they don't have that pressure maybe. So what's your thoughts on that?
I think Alabama's had what they needed to have. They got beat, and I think ever since they've gotten beat, it's woke them up. And I don't think it being the Iron Bowl and it being Alabama Auburn, and still realized if you don't show up to play, you're going to get beat, or you have a chance of getting beat. So I don't see them not showing up for the game. I think they'll be ready to play. I think Auburn, again, they have to make Jake Coker beat them, and they got to try to confuse Alabama's secondary on get some points on the board and get some field goals. But anything can happen.
Oh, absolutely.
But I don't see them not showing up to play.
Yeah. Well, I got one more question, maybe two more if we have time. But one of the things, we've got into this playoff system, and just what's your thoughts on that, Ben? Going to this playoff, the 4-team playoff? Do you like that, or what?
Well, they've been fortunate. It's worked out for them. It worked out for them last year, and it'll work out for them again this year because the Pac-12's already out, and so that helps a lot. But I do believe they need to go to an 8-game playoff, or 8-team playoff, because that'll include people that normally, that's not in a Power 5 conference.
Right.
And sometimes you have a team that breaks out and has that Cinderella year and can compete with the Power 5 conferences. And so that would give them the opportunity. Plus, I don't think there would be any controversy if you take the top 8.
Yeah.
I believe that'll work.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on
I
that?
totally agree with Mr. McCurdy. I think it's got to be at 8. I think the BCS made some of the other bowls less than what they used to be, like bowls like the Liberty Bowl. So you have these 4 bowls. It's big now, and that's kind of how the playoffs going. But I think you got to take your 5 conference champions and your three play-in games from the other 5, and it's got to be expanded to 8. And the bowl games can be big again. You can host these instead of having the 4 big bowls or the 2 big bowls, the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl, and one of them hosting the national championship. Now these other bowls, and I think it was going to mark it out great because you have this bowl is now bigger. You can still the same bowl. The people can, and I think that's why they haven't been. It's not been, and FBS hasn't done it because of the money.
Yeah.
And the market and the bowl games. And this way, I think it makes the market better if you go to 8. And I don't think any of the bowl committees would gripe about that because they're going to have their name on ESPN every single night talking about this game and this matchup with this Group 5 school versus this Power 5 school and this bowl. And you still play the national championship same date. I mean, you don't have to have this month-long delay.
Right.
They can still play everything the same.
Yeah. All right. I've got one last question, Logan, and you may have one.
I have
but
one, but
all
I
right.
want to save it till the very end.
Okay. All right. The question I have for you, what is your best memory of the Alabama-Auburn game? And then maybe what was your worst memory of an Alabama-Auburn game?
I believe I already told you my worst memory. That one, I'll start with my worst and end on a good note. Maybe that way I'll sleep better tonight. My worst memory was the 84 game where Tiffin goes out and kicks the 52-yard field goal. My best memory of the Auburn game is in 1982. Alabama had beaten us for 9 straight years. 9 straight years. And we started 13 freshmen that day.
Wow.
13 freshmen. And we beat them 22-21.
Yeah. I remember that game. I was actually sitting in the end zone where Bo went over the top, and that was an exciting football game. I do remember it. What about you, Nick? What's your memories? Your favorite memory and worst memory?
Shoes flipped. When I was at Alabama, Tuberville, it was Fear of the Thumb. That's probably the worst memory was hearing the Fear of the Thumb. Fear of the Thumb, because Auburn was good.
Yeah.
And really and truly, I had to say, some of the Alabama fans may not like this, but my favorite Alabama-Auburn memory when I was around the program down there was getting to watch Auburn with Campbell and Ronnie Brown and Carnell Williams, and watching those guys with that offensive line. I think maybe King Dunlap might have been playing left tackle with those guys.
That's right.
And who was the linebacker that was so good?
Played for the Chargers. Yeah.
Sykes.
Sykes.
Yeah,
Takeo.
Takeo Spikes.
Yes.
Watching Auburn then was, I mean, as a fan, as a football fan, I enjoyed that. Even though we got thumped, it was something to see because you had a quarterback that could beat you with his arm and his legs. You had two stud running backs. You had a huge offensive line and a really good. One of the DBs was an All Pro Bowler too, and you had Takeo Spikes, and Auburn was really good.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that was my favorite memory, but watching them was my favorite memory probably. Being able to be in person with it.
All
Logan?
right. Well, I know we're about at the end of the show and we're kind of wrapping things up, but I want to hear y'all's prediction on what y'all think the final score is going to be Saturday when it's all said and done.
Wow. A few years ago, it'd have been easy for me. I'd have said 21-17, you know, but with this era of higher scoring and a lot more throwing the ball, being loose with the ball was what Coach Dye would say. But I'm gonna say probably 28 to 17.
Who you picking to win?
We'll just say 28 to 17. I can't say it. I can't make myself say it.
We understand. Ready?
I don't know what the final score will be, but I think Alabama will win plus 20, and I think Saban will be running the clock out at the end of the game so they don't score again.
Logan, what's your thoughts?
I'm gonna say 31-17. Alabama.
I tell you, you know, and maybe I'm wrong in this, but I think this Auburn team is going to come out and play Alabama better than they have played all year long. And you know, I think going into the fourth quarter, this game will not be decided, but I think, you know, in the fourth quarter, Bama will kind of take control and be able to run the ball. So I'm going with 31-24.
31.
So, hey guys, it's been great. Again, we appreciate y'all being here today and being able to share some of your stories with us and you know, just getting to hear, you know, man, there's nothing I love better than talking football and hearing you guys talk about football. And again, you know, we appreciate you guys tuning in, and I tell you, it's an exciting time, and I know everybody's getting pumped for Saturday. And again, we thank you guys for tuning in, and you know, we look forward to being back with you again. And you know, God bless each one of you, and we hope you have a great week, and I hope your favorite team wins.
Hey, this is Logan Ryan. I'm with Mountain Valley News, and we're going to go around, and right now we're at Wingstop here in Fort Payne, Alabama, and we're just going around. We're going to ask the people and talk a little bit about the Iron Bowl. So let's start with you guys. Tell us what your favorite memory is from the Iron Bowl.
Let's see. Probably when Alabama beat Auburn, what was it, 36-0? A couple years ago? Yeah, that's definitely got to be it.
And yours?
Mine was the 2013 Iron Bowl in Auburn. I was sitting in the end zone where Chris Davis ran back the kick six, and we all got to storm the field, so that was a great memory.
All right. So now let's hear who y'all are picking to win this year.
Definitely Alabama. I'm going to go ahead and predict the score. Let's see. I'm going to say Alabama 36, Auburn 14.
I'm going to go with my gut and say the Auburn Tigers with a score of 28-27 off a return punt for the touchdown.
All right. Thank you, guys.
No problem.
All right, so just tell us what your typical plans are for the Iron Bowl, what you like to do every year for it.
I usually go to my aunt's and watch the game and just have fun and go out and eat and all that stuff.
So let's hear it. Who are you predicting to win, and what do you think the final score will be?
Alabama by far. It's going to be like that 2012 game. I think they'll score up on them.
Can I get a roll tide real quick?
Roll Tide.
Here we go. All right, appreciate it. All right, so just get us what y'all typically like to do on the Iron Bowl. You know, Saturday, it's a huge event in Alabama. Just what do y'all typically like to do?
Eat wings and watch football.
What about you guys?
Cook for all the kids.
Eat and have fun.
All right, so let's get some predictions. Who do you guys think is going to come out on top this year?
Alabama. Auburn.
Alabama.
Oh, we have a little split in the family here. Thank you, guys. We know here in Alabama on Iron Bowl Saturday, nothing else matters. So we're going to ask this man right here, who do you think is going to win this Saturday?
Alabama Roll Tide,
That's
baby.
what I'm talking about. I like it. I'm here with Holly Jo Flora. She is the music director here at Broadway. And just tell us some of your favorite Iron Bowl memories.
I have a lot of good memories of yummy food that I ate. But as far as games, I hate to say this, I don't really have a lot of memories. But my hope is that Alabama will win because then my husband will be very happy and I will be happy too.
There we go. Can we get a Roll Tide real quick?
Roll Tide!
Hi, I'm Logan Wright, and we're here with John Prose. He is the youth minister at Broadway, and I know he'd love to have you come out and visit him. But right now, we're going to talk a little bit about the Iron Bowl. So just give us a run through of some of your favorite memories from the Iron Bowl.
Favorite memories was 2004, the year I became an Auburn fan. That was a good year. We went undefeated, beat Alabama. My buddy actually got on TV with Iron Bowl painted across his chest. Became a big deal. And then obviously the kick six. I mean, that's kind of goes down in every Auburn fan's memory book as one of our favorite memories. So
Just tell us who you're picking to win, ultimately.
who I'm ultimately picking to win this year's Iron Bowl. It's a home game. You got to go with Auburn, War Eagle.
Let's get a good War Eagle before we close out right here.
War Eagle.
We're here in Body Vision in Rainsville, Alabama, winner of the best gym in DeKalb County. And I'm actually standing here with multiple-time best personal trainer winner, Aki, from Body Vision. He works here. And just tell us what you typically like to do for the Iron Bowl.
Oh, simply just stay home and relax, watch the ball game. That's all I do.
Yeah.
Simple.
All right, so let's get in a little bit. Who do you think is going to win this year?
Well, if you want me to tell detail, and since Bama is playing good on the road, I have to say Bama this year. I like both teams.
So what do you think the final score is going to be?
My prediction is 38-21. Bama, that's my prediction.
All right, can I get a Roll Tide?
Roll Tide and War Eagle. I support both teams.
There we go. All right, so what are your plans this year? What do you typically like to do for Iron Bowl? We know it's huge around Sand Mountain.
Oh, we'll get some family together and we'll have a big eat, and we'll get the big screen going, and we'll have some Roll Tide and War Eagle.
All right, now
Try to keep it friendly, but we can't promise that.
let's hear who's your prediction to win this year?
Well, I think Auburn is 11th in the SEC and stopping the rush, and 13th in stopping rushing touchdowns. So I think Derrick Henry is going to have a field day.
Can I get a Roll Tide real quick?
Roll Tide.
So what do you typically like to do for Iron Bowl Saturday?
Usually it's just home with the family, watching the ball game with them.
All right, so we got to get your prediction. Who do you think is going to come out on top this year?
Well, everybody's got their own pick, but this year it'll be Bama.
All right, can we get a Roll Tide real quick?
Roll Tide, everybody.
Hey, we're here with Body Vision owner Davey Willingham. Now, Davey, what are your typical plans for Iron Bowl Saturday?
Oh man, we just get together and have dinner and enjoy the game.
All right, now, have to get down in detail. Who do you think is going to win this Saturday?
No question. Roll Tide, roll.
All right, so tell us what you typically like to do when it comes game time for the Iron Bowl.
Oh, I just like to eat and rest and get ready and scream and holler.
All right, now tell us who you think is going to win this week.
Nobody but Alabama.
Let us get a Roll Tide real quick.
Roll Tide.
All right, so tell us what y'all like to do for Iron Bowl weekend.
Oh, we like to have a pizza party there before it starts and everything.
What about you?
Same thing.
All right, now tell us who y'all think is going to win this year.
The Tide is going to win.
There we go. Can we get a Roll Tide real quick?
Roll Tide.
There we go. Appreciate it. All right, so what do you typically like to do when it comes Saturday and crunch time?
Just kick back and root for the Tide.
So I guess we already know, but go ahead and tell us anyway who you think's going to win.
Bama.
We get a Roll Tide real quick?
Roll Tide.